American philosopher Robert Nozick came up with an interesting idea in his book Anarchy, State and Utopia. Now his idea is a thought experiment. Now imagine in the not so distant future, science is capable of building a machine that can simulate a reality, a machine he calls the experience machine. Now people can connect this machine and experience simulations that are very lifelike. Now they can experience every sentiment, every feeling, everything as if they experience it in the real world. And they have absolute control over those simulations. They can control the scenario, they can control who they are, at what age they appear in the simulation, what they do, what experiences they go through. They have absolute control over everything. They can be superheroes, they can be vigilantes who fight crime and save their communities, they can cure diseases that are incurable, they can do absolutely everything. Nozick's idea is that a lot of people would not abandon their real lives and connect to the machine because the real life is superior to a simulation, although that simulation is capable of procuring a lot of pleasure. Robert Nozick's goal was to disprove hedonism. Now hedonism is the idea put forward by Greek philosopher Epicurus. Now Epicurus theorized that the most important motivations behind all human actions, behaviors and choices were the maximization of pleasure and the minimization of pain, and that all other goals human beings sought were only subsidiary goals that were used to reach those primary goals. So for example, people who are religious and who follow their religions, they do everything their religions ask them to do and stay away from everything their religions ask them to stay away from. They do so because they want to go to paradise. And what is paradise but a place of pleasure? A place where they could eat the tastiest of food, where they could dwell in the best of homes, and when they could have the best sex. At the same time, they don't want to go to hell, which is a place of horror and torture and pain. Also, people who devote their lives to amassing money, they do this because money would allow them to buy the best homes, to eat the best food, and if ever they experienced any pain, like for instance a toothache or something like that, they would be able, thanks to their money, to go to the best dentist and take care of that pain. Over time, Epicurus' idea of hedonism has been demonized to the point that hedonism has become synonymous of defilement and decadence. But Epicurus was a serious philosopher. He distinguished between two types of pleasures. There was kinetic pleasure and catastematic pleasure. Kinetic pleasure was pleasure that emanates from drinking water after you've been thirsty, or eating delicious food, or having a sexual orgasm, or even scratching an itch. While catastematic pleasure was that feeling of content and satisfaction that people experience after they achieve a goal they have been pursuing. So for instance, if a person has been hungry, the moment that person is eating some delicious meal, the pleasure the person derives from eating the delicious meal is a form of kinetic pleasure, while after eating that meal and feeling full, that sentiment of content and tranquility is what Epicurus refers to as catastematic pleasure. And Epicurus advised people to focus on catastematic pleasure because it was not ephemeral and because it was superior to kinetic pleasure. Back to the thought experiment of Robert Nozick. Now his whole idea was to prove that the majority of people would not abandon the real life and connect to the machine because the real life was more important than the experience machine, despite all the pleasures that the experience machine was capable of procuring. But I think that he did not succeed in doing so because the authenticity of the real world is not absolute. There is the simulation theory of Nick Bostrom, which says that the world we live in is a simulation as well. So in that regard, the experience machine would be a simulation inside another simulation. So you will be comparing one simulation to another. It's just that in one simulation you have absolutely no control, while in the other simulation you have a lot of control. You can be whoever you want to be, you can experience all the pleasures you want, and you can stay away from all forms of pain. So I think that a lot of people would prefer to connect to the machine, to connect to the experience machine, and live in a simulation that is better than the original simulation. There's also quantum physics, which tells us that our experience with what we call the real world is very far from its reality. We do not see everything there is to see. There are a lot of things our eyes do not allow us to see. We do not hear all the noises there are to hear because our ears only allow us to pick up certain noises. So we experience the world through our senses, and our senses are very weak to the point that the version we know of the real world is very far from its reality. So here you will be comparing a fake world to a fake world. It's just that in the second fake world, you can be king or queen or superhero or anything you want. In San Junipero, there is the story of two girls who are friends and lovers, who are very old and terminally sick. They are both hospitalized in the same hospital, and that hospital offers them the possibility to connect to a machine that is very similar to Robert Nozick's machine. They both choose to live in a simulation of California in the 1980s. They are both young and beautiful, and they live a very happy life. It's just that one of the girls wants to end her life in the real world and upload her entire consciousness into the machine, while the other girl is hesitating and dithering. Those positions are very reflective of the two conflicting positions of Robert Nozick, who is absolutely against the machine and who thinks that the real world is important, is much more important than any simulation, and the position of Epicurus, who is for hedonism and who thinks that what matters is the pursuit of pleasure and the minimization of all forms of pain. So there is this conflict between those two positions, but at the end of the episode, the girl who was against the idea of living forever in the simulation ends up changing her mind and accepting to end her life in the real world and to upload her entire consciousness together with a friend into this simulation and to live a happy life with a friend. I think this episode is fabulous. It explores a lot of concepts like hedonism and reality and simulation and the importance of pleasure and the motivations in life. This video has reached its end. If you like to thumb it up, if you dislike to thumb it down. What do you think matters? And until we meet again, have a great day.